The Ballarat Marathon, what a crazy experience. Let me start this video by saying I didn't get the goal of sub 2:45. But instead of feeling sad, frustrated, and depressed, I'm actually really happy about the result. A finishing time of 2 hours, 51 minutes, and 9 seconds wouldn't usually be considered a success, but this time it most certainly is in my eyes. In today's video, I break down the entire race, so what happened, and I explain why running 2 hours and 51 minutes at the Ballarat Marathon has left a smile on my face. So let's rewind all the way back to Friday morning when I flew into Melbourne and then drove about 80 minutes into Ballarat with Marty and Rennie. Once we arrived in Ballarat, we met up with Macca and Andy, and then we headed to our Airbnb. Ballarat, it was a bit of a country town, but the Airbnb that we got, it was pretty nice, and yeah, it was definitely homey. Then Friday afternoon, we pretty much just chilled out. We had a rental car, which was super handy, and we actually decided to do a little bit of a rec. Is that what it's called? A spec. We basically just drove the marathon course just to familiarize ourselves with what we were in for on Sunday. And then, yeah, we got home, cooked a very carb-heavy dinner, and then went to bed. So I woke up Saturday morning, honestly feeling like the Energizer Bunny. And we had a 30-minute shakeout planned around the lake in Ballarat. And basically, I was mucking around with Macca. He had the camera out, and I was sort of shadowboxing. If you've watched the vlog, I was shadowboxing to the camera, and I stepped back, and I must have landed weird, or my foot slipped, and I actually twisted my knee. Of all the times I've twisted my knee, and yeah, it was actually really sore. Just put into perspective, my knees, they're not the best. Sometimes they kind of feel like they slip out a little bit, and then all I have to do is kind of do like a deep squat or like put it into a position, and it kind of feels like they pop back in, and then I'm good to go. But this time it wasn't popping back in, and it was actually just getting more painful as the morning went on. I stayed hopeful and still ran the shakeouts. We did half an hour around the lake. I could definitely feel my knee, like it did not feel very good, but you know, us as runners, we like to just pretend like a pain isn't as bad as it is and just hope that you can kind of just run through it. So that's what I did, and I finished the shakeout not feeling super confident, but you know, my knee was runnable and it was okay. And then pretty much we went from the shakeout, we went home, showered, and then we headed off to grab our bibs. And because two of the people that I'm staying with, or two of the people that we were staying with, we had Rennie, who is in the elite field, and we also had Andy Good, who was a Kiwi marathoner who was aiming for 2 hours 18 minutes. So those guys had entry into the elite briefing, and me and Marty and Macca got to tag along to that. It was honestly a surreal experience. Obviously my first ever elite briefing that I've been to, and yeah, it was really cool. I loved how they just sort of broke down how the race was gonna go, all of the drink stations, basically just like where the elite area was, and basically like a step-by-step plan of how the morning is gonna go. I think that as an elite runner, going to those briefings is just such a leg up, because I think it would just take so much stress, so much pressure off the morning, just because you know exactly how it's gonna plan out. And yeah, it was really cool. One of the organizers, Keith, who was kind of looking after all of the elite athletes, happened to be friends with Rennie and Marty. So Rennie did some sweet talking and actually managed to get all three of us, so myself, Marty, and Macca, all into the elite lounge before and after the race. We were given these elite support lanyards, and it was just so amazing. Basically walked and then went back downstairs, and I grabbed my bib. I was sort of limping around at this stage. I was really trying to act like I wasn't limping, especially when I was in the elite area, just because I didn't want Keith to look at me and be like, "Are you limping? But you want like an elite entry?" Like, I was really just trying to hide it at that stage, and especially because I just didn't want people knowing. I don't know, I felt like kind of embarrassed, you know, limping around the day before a marathon. But then I got home from that. It was like around lunchtime, and my knee had really blown up. Like, it was fairly swollen. I was starting to lose mobility. I was starting to lose range of motion in it. I could bend it, but not all the way. So I thought I'm absolutely just gonna feed up for the rest of the day and just ice the crap out of it. So that's pretty much what I did. There was the Elite 5K and the Elite Mile that was on in the afternoon that I was so keen to go watch, but I ultimately just stayed home and I was just on ricer. So what is that? Rest, ice, compression, elevation. That was me, baby. All through Saturday and into the night. I honestly was like in pretty bad spirits. I didn't really vlog much and I was pretty sad. I was kind of just getting in my own head, not really knowing what was going to happen on the Sunday, and I was kind of just feeling, I was pretty upset. As you would be. So I didn't really vlog that much on that day, but went to bed not knowing what the next day would bring me. So I was walking around on Saturday. I could definitely weight bear on my knee, but it was definitely a limp. Like I couldn't fully straighten it out. And I woke up Sunday morning, and those first few steps I was very nervous to take. I just stayed in bed for like an extra 20 minutes just because I was like a little bit nervous to take those first few steps because it would kind of just decide how the rest of the day was gonna go. I walked around on it and to be honest, it felt pretty much the same as it did the day before. It wasn't super swollen at this stage, but it was definitely swollen. Honestly, didn't know how far that I was gonna make it in this race, but I knew that I was gonna still go out, have a crack and just die well. The famous words of the wise man Andy Good said to us, if you're gonna do a marathon, die well. So I wasn't hopeful at this stage, but I just wanted to carry on business as usual. So I had my carb breakfast, had my coffee, and I just acted as if I was going to run the marathon and I wasn't injured. And at this moment I was feeling I was trying to stay optimistic, to say the least. So we headed into town, made it into the Elite Lounge. The Elite Lounge was such a cool experience. I definitely felt very, very out of place. So I was we kind of like tucked away into the corner and just tried to mind our own business and not annoy anybody. I spoke to Keith, who was the organizer, and I asked him if there would be a physio in the Elite Lounge that could possibly strap my knee up, because my knee did feel a lot better when it was wearing like a compression sock. It just felt a bit sturdier, felt safer, so I was like, I need to strap this thing up. And Andy asked around some of the other elites and I got pointed in the direction of, I forget his name, but I asked him, I said, hey mate, I'm so sorry to annoy you. My name's Dave, nice to meet you. I've picked up a little knee injury yesterday and I've been pointed in your direction to see if you could maybe strap my knee up if you have time. If you don't, I totally understand. I don't want to impose on you're an elite athlete. I don't want to impose on your morning routine before you race. Like I think at this stage it was like 45 minutes until the gun. So yeah, I really didn't want to be annoying. And he said, mate, I could do it, but it would take me ages. So I don't really want to do it. And I said, look, I completely understand. Thank you for your time. And he said, look, here's a few pointers. He said, you want to put 2 anchor points, one above and below the knee, and then you want to just crisscross on the inside of the knee over. So that's what I did. I ended up just doing my own home tape job. And honestly, I think that saved me. But yeah, it makes me wonder. I wonder what it would have been like if I actually had it done properly. But I'm so glad that I did it, because I think, that was most of the reason how I was still able to even finish the marathon at all. And then we went out, so Marty, Rinny, and Andy was there actually, but he kind of raced off, being an elite, went for our jog warm up. So we did about 3K. This was probably the most nervous I've been all morning, because I knew that this would dictate whether I was going to it was going to dictate how far I think that I was going to get in this race and if I was even going to be able to run at all. That's how unsure I was about this marathon and if I was going to race it. I was like so unsure what the day was going to bring. But I managed to get a jog on and the knee felt okay. I definitely knew it was there, but it felt all right. I think I did about 30 seconds to 60 seconds at marathon pace. Didn't feel amazing, but it felt pretty good. So we went back inside to the Elite Lounge, changed the shoes, and then walked down to the start line, and it was go time. It was time to leave it all on the line and just pray that my knee held on for this race and just try not to think about it and just go for it. So basically the way the course worked, it was 2 laps. You start off with about a 2-kilometer hill with a pretty steady incline. You definitely felt that. Because I was pretending to be an elite athlete, or I was with an elite athlete, there was a few different starting lines. So the first one was, of course, the elites. Then behind them was priority, which is what I got moved into. And then behind them was A. So the 240 pacer was actually behind me in the A corral, and everyone that was around me was basically aiming for under 240. And then everyone in front of me again was like all the elites, so aiming for like sub 220. So a bit of imposter syndrome, but basically Rinny and I, we were at the back of priority, just to the side, because we didn't want to get in anybody's way. And we knew that when we started, we were gonna try not get caught up in the paces of everybody else around us. We knew that the 240 group would eventually pass us, and the idea was don't get caught up in that 240 group and just let them pass and just run our own race. So the first kilometer was actually a 31 meter elevation gain, and we ran that one at 3:55. So yeah, kind of reserved, but also the hill, it was kind of spicy. It was actually quite spicy. And then the next 3Ks were 3:51, 3:51, 3:51, 3:50. So the first 5Ks, we were absolutely on pace. So the first 5Ks came in at a 19:16 split. So pretty much bang on. If we were to run perfect 350 average for each kilometer, it would be 19:10. So I wanted to be around that 19:10 to, I guess, 19:25. I think that would pretty comfortably get me in under 2:45. So a little reminder, to run 2:45, you have to run at least 3:54 per kilometer, each kilometer for 42 Ks. The first 5K, honestly, I was really unsure how I was gonna feel. I thought my knee is just gonna go at any second. It didn't feel that bad, if I'm being honest. My knee actually felt pretty good. I think the taping job really did its job, but I was still just so uncertain of how it was gonna make me feel in the long run, and I was almost just waiting for like a sniper to hit me at any moment. So it was a bit of a nervous time starting the race, and my heart rate was actually so high. Like the second kilometer in, I was in 175. Which I didn't really hit that at all in training when running marathon pace. So yeah, I think maybe the nerves was getting to me, and yeah, it was just, yeah, I think it was just tough. It was just a tough first 5Ks because I just didn't really know what was gonna happen. The next 5Ks we did in 1932, so about 15 seconds slower, but at this stage, still very much on pace. I remember getting to the 10-kilometer mark and kind of checking with myself, and I had a little conversation with myself, and I thought, I can do this. I feel like I can continue on with this for the full marathon, and I was very hopeful at this stage, and I thought, you know what? Out of all the things that have happened, if I can run sub 245 here today, oh, that would just be amazing. All the odds kind of stacked against me with this little knee injury. And yeah, I was really enjoying myself and just soaking in the atmosphere, and it was so helpful having Rinny there, because I didn't really have to think about the pace. She was just reassuring me that we're good, you're good, you feel good, we're on pace, don't stress, just relax, and all the rest. So yeah, it was really great having her there. And at 10Ks, the dream is still well and truly on. Then we get to the 15-kilometer mark. So that next 5K split was a 19:15. That was probably, yeah, one of the best 5Ks of the race. Was feeling so good. And I think about this point is when you make your way back and you turn left into the lake. So there was one thing that I didn't say earlier that I will comment on, was the weather was about 12 degrees. So not the coolest day, but with a pretty strong breeze, which did cool it down, which I honestly felt really good temperature wise. Even all the way through to the end of the race, I didn't feel like I was overheating or that it was hot at any point. So tick, thank you for that, Ballarat. The only thing that was pretty rough was the wind. It was pretty ridiculous at points. Luckily I had a bit of a group on that first lap I could kind of tuck in behind, but around that lake they said it was going to be windy, and yeah, it was pretty brutal. But if I'm being honest, I don't think the wind really bothered me all that much. Like, I wasn't sitting there thinking, oh God, this wind is like wearing me down. It was more like oh shit, it's pretty windy, but I think I'm okay. We were pretty much averaging from that 10 to 15 kilometer mark, we were averaging 353 down. There was a few 349 kilometer splits in a row. So yeah, just really, really good, really, really comfortable at this stage. Then we get to the next split. So 15 to 20 was a 19:24 5K splits. So averaging 351 pace for that 5K split. The dream is well and truly still going. I was heading down that long hill that I spoke about at the start, ready to finish my first lap. And there's a bit of a hairpin before you come back to the finish line, and then you work your way up for the second lap. Honestly, the dream was on, and I was feeling really, really good at this stage. I will note that I think it was maybe around the 15 kilometer mark, my hip felt like my hip socket was just starting to ache. And I thought it was weird because I've never felt pain there before. I've never had any hip soreness in any of my training, anything leading up to this race. And I think it was because, well, I know now, it was because of my limited range of movement that I had in my knee was forcing me to stride differently. I did notice that I was starting to kind of almost heel strike on my right side, which was where my knee was sore. And I was definitely landing flat-footed to, I guess, compensate for my knee. And being out of that stride for just such a long time, it just really started to aggravate my hip, and it was starting to really become a problem by halfway. And when I finished my first lap and started making my way up that big first hill for the second time round, my hip was really starting to get aggravated, and it was definitely starting to become a problem and was starting to worry me. It's funny, you know, like my knee actually didn't hurt all that much during the entire marathon, but I think just because of the change in stride and just me running differently than I would usually do at such a pace that I've never ran before for so long, it just really, really got to my hip. So I was in all sorts by then, but we continued on. So from the 21.1 kilometer mark to the 26.1 kilometer mark, so the next 5K split was a 352 average, so a 19:20. So I've made it to 31K, and I'm still well and truly under 2:45 pace. I will say though, this is where the marathon really started for me, and this is where my hip was actually starting to slow me down. So you can see here from my splits, from the 30 kilometer mark onwards, was pretty much all in the 4 minutes. So we hit 4:03, 4:08, 4:06, 4:12, and then 4:09 at 34 Ks. So that was really, really tough. Like, because of my hip, I just couldn't turn my legs over any faster. Like, they were fatigued, but it was really just the pain in my hip that was slowing me down. And I said to Rennie, like, man, my hip is really giving me grief. And she said, can you finish? I said, I can finish. She said, all right, no matter what, we're finishing, we're getting that fucking medal. It's literally what she said. So that definitely fired me up. And I soldiered on. But unfortunately, the paces really just started to decline from there. Like, my 35th K was a 5:08 kilometer split. So I think that must have been where my first stoppage was. One thing I'm super proud of for this marathon is I didn't cramp. That was my biggest fear going into this race. I didn't cramp, not once. But what did make me stop was my hip, and it felt like the pain was kind of building up, and then it would just go bang, and it would feel like I'd been punched in the hip. Maybe it was a cramp, I don't know. It didn't feel like a cramp because it didn't kind of seize up and then, it did kind of seize up and then go away, but I had to stop, had to kind of just give it a second, lean over, and then it would kind of go away, and then I would get back going again. But every time I stopped, my pace would slow down again when I tried to get going again. Like I just couldn't get back up to goal marathon pace. It just wasn't happening at this point. The dream of 2:45 was over, and I was thinking, okay, maybe I can PB. I'm just gonna see what I can do. I'm just gonna run as fast as my body will physically let me run. So from 34 kilometers onwards, this was an extremely tough task just to even run. One thing I will say is Rini, she was having the time of her life. She's a very, very capable runner. So running at like 4:45 pace, you can imagine is pretty cruisy for her. So she was actually running alongside me. She was on her phone, reading out encouraging messages from the group chat and sending in video, like a video diary of how I'm going each kilometer, and just keeping all of our friends up to date with how I'm traveling. At the time, it was really funny, and I was like enjoying myself. But it was, yeah, now that I'm thinking back, I'm just thinking, oh geez, that would have looked so funny for other people, like watching in and just seeing her like running with her phone, filming me, and like reading out messages and typing, and just while I'm trying to run like essentially the hardest marathon of my life. Kind of managed to pull it back for 4:15, 4:22 for 36 and 37 kilometers. This was the point running around the lake. This is where all of my stoppages were. I think I stopped 3 times that you may have seen. I got some good footage of me stopping and retying my shoes and just basically feeling sorry for myself. But yeah, had to keep going. And another thing I'll say is there was a lot of people that as they ran past me, they would tap me on the back and say, come on Dave, like pick it up mate. And there were some really good words of encouragement, which is always really, really nice to hear, even though you don't really want to hear them when you're battling. Basically, I was just trying to survive, to get out of that fucking lake, get away from that lake, because I knew that there was one turn out of the lake and then it was going to be downhill all the way to the finish line. So I made it out of the lake, hit that downhill stretch, and then something about the downhill, my hip wasn't hurting. So I found this newfound strength to finish the marathon. There was crowds of people cheering me on. It was just an amazing experience to finish. And I managed to do the 41st K at a 4:08, the 42nd K, 3:47. So managed to finish really strong going down this hill. Did the last turn, ran up, finished, ran over the finish line. Not feeling sad at all, because really I was just feeling grateful, and I just couldn't believe that I was able to run as well as I did up until the 31st K, where it started to go downhill. But honestly, standing on that start line, I didn't know if I was going to run 1K, 5K, 10K. I didn't know how far I was going to go before I was going to DNF. And to not DNF at all and actually run like 2:51, which is pretty respectable time, I'm honestly really, really happy with that. And that's why I'm like still smiling when I think about this race, because although it was an absolute roller coaster, it was still such an enjoyable race. And yeah, just so grateful to even be able to run with all of the odds kind of, I guess, stacked against me. It was really, really funny when we were running through the finish line. The presenter, because Rini was like running beside me with the camera, just the funniest photos. The presenter was like, oh look, here he comes through and he's getting filmed by his wife. How good is this? So yeah, Rini is not my wife. Just throwing it out there. Although it wasn't my best marathon by a long shot, it was probably one of my favorites still, just because the way the Ballarat Marathon was run, it was just such a beautiful event. I really, really enjoyed the course. It wasn't at all my day, but it definitely was still a success in my eyes. Absolutely. I just want to as well just shout out everybody for sending all those kind messages. I've got one here that I would like to read out. It's from Joey Moxie. I read this one after the marathon, and you know what? I wasn't really feeling sorry for myself, but this really made me feel good about myself, and I really appreciate messages like this. So he said, great work, mate. I don't know if this will give you any perspective, but you just ran a time I consider my lifetime goal in the marathon. A sub-3 marathon is still impressive as hell. Well done. So it all just comes down to perspective. And I really cannot complain that I ran 2:51. I was able to still run. I was able to still enjoy myself. And that is a lot more than some people are able to experience. So I live to fight another day. And overall, I'm grateful. So how's my knee today? It is Tuesday and it is very, very swollen. It's funny, yesterday I was kind of poking around my legs just to see where I'm sore, and I'm pretty much sore in my quads, hammies, calves, and hip on my right side, but I'm not sore at all on my left side. It doesn't even feel like I've run. So that puts into perspective just how cooked I was on my right side and how much I was overcompensating. I've also got my race shoes here. I was checking out just the wear and tear that I got from the race. This is my left shoe. Notice the inside of the shoe, reasonably clean. This is my right shoe, so the side that I had my injured knee and very, very sore hip. Look at the wear and tear on the inside here. So that's more than just dirt. That's actually like the road scraping along here. So that just shows how much I was landing and rolling in, and just how much I was actually heel striking on this one side. Well, it's like no wonder that my hip was so put out and so sore, is because I was just, I mean, look at that. That just explains everything, doesn't it? I'm heading to the physio today where I'm gonna see what the damage is, hoping that it's nothing too crazy. What have I got coming up next? I've got Brisbane half marathon coming up in 6 weeks, and then in 10 weeks, I've got the Gold Coast full marathon, where you know what I'm gonna be aiming for. Of course, we got the redemption. I'm not gonna be doing a full marathon series in preparation for that, but there will be some really cool content in the lead up to that as well. You can bet your bottom dollar. But a huge thank you to everybody that has commented, liked, subscribed, and followed me on this journey to the Ballarat Marathon start line. I know I didn't get the goal, and honestly, I'm still happy with it. Sorry if I've let any of you guys down, but if any of you guys are runners yourselves, which I'm sure you are, you know that the marathon owes you nothing, and the climb to the top is an absolute roller coaster. You're gonna have almost more bad races than you do good. So, I mean, I'm absolutely due for a good race. Next focus is the half marathon in 6 weeks. Let's see what I can pull out. Hopefully something in the range of 1:15. We'll see what happens, but I'm signing off for the final time in the Project Ballarat 245 series. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.